If you have two shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have two trousers, please sell one and buy a sword. Because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on the streets. This revolution is not about burning cars. This revolution is in the mind. Because if your mind is not under your control, your body will be but a tool that your oppressor will use to oppress you and to oppress your people. Peace and power to all African people, freedom and light, peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and decolonization. This is what our weekly conversation that we have in terms of the ACUP, its mission and its vision, where we come to inspire each other and to talk about the path to our freedom as African people, to talk about the way in which we can eventually free ourselves and then forge a way to our effective freedom and emancipation. It is important that we keep talking about this, we inspire our people. It's important that we actually keep on spreading the word, which we call in our context as ACUP, we call it the gospel according to the ACUP, because you know it took 400 years of slavery and colonialism to be in the situation where we are today. So this is not going to be one day job to change the situation of Africa. It's going to take more time and more dedication to spread the news, to talk to our people, to inspire our people about greatness, about the value of freedom. Because one thing that we all can realize today is that many of our people are accustomed now, so to say, to the conditions of oppression and the condition of slavery. Many people don't know the value of freedom, therefore they don't do anything they can do in order to acquire that freedom. So it is our duty to speak, to enlighten the minds of our people so that they can realize that there is a freedom, beyond what we see today, and that we need to work to get that freedom effective. By the way, today I have a question for all of us as African people. The question that I actually woke up with this morning, is woke up in the morning in my mind. I had this question. The question is, how many years really do we still need as African people? How many years, or how many years does Africa need in order to change its situation? I don't know if the question is clear, but this what I had in my mind today as I woke up in the morning. How many years do we still need as African people to change our situation? So I took some time to think about this question in different aspects. How many years really can we take to change Africa, to change our situation? And as I was thinking about it, it came to my mind one realization, or one kind of response that I had in mind as I was asking myself this question. And what I've come up with in terms of responding to the question, which is the topic of today's conversation, of how many years do we still need as African people to change our situation. What came in my mind is simply that Africa can change, or the situation of Africa can change in 1 year. It can change in 2 years. It can change in 10 years. It can change in 100 years. And sometimes it may never also change. That's what came in my mind. So Africa can change in 1 year, from this year, from today, the 1st of October 2022. 1st of October next year, Africa can become totally something different in terms of progress, in terms of success, in terms of achieving the goals that we have as African people. Africa can take 10 years to change to become the Africa that we need, which is the global power base. Africa can take 50 years to become the Africa that we need, which is the global power base. And Africa can take even 100 years to become what we need, which is the global power base. But also Africa may take forever to change. It means it may never change. Why? Because it depends on when African people, all of us as African people, decide to begin doing for ourselves what other people have pretended to do for us. This was the answer that I came up with. Africa can change today, tomorrow, or never will change because it depends on one thing. It depends on one thing, which is us as African people. Depends on the day that we decide to begin doing for ourselves what other people have been pretending actually to do for us. The moment that we decide as African people at home and abroad to begin doing for ourselves what many people have been pretending to do for us, that will be the day that Africa will see a light of its freedom. That is the day that Africa will see the lights of its progress. That is the day that Africa will see the light of its success in any area of our existence. So today, if we are still struggling today, in other words, it means we haven't taken that decision as yet. We have not yet decided to begin doing for ourselves everything that we have left out, our responsibility, things that we wanted other people to do for us, which they have never done for us, they have only pretended to do for us. So we are still suffering because we have not yet decided to do for ourselves. We are still languishing in poverty despite all the resources that we have in Africa because we have not yet decided to do for ourselves what many people pretend to do for us. We are still, a third world country or nations because we have not yet decided to do for ourselves what other people have been pretending to do for us. We are still, undereducated. We are still underdeveloped, so to say, because we are still not being actually responsible for our own lives. In other words, we have not yet decided to do for ourselves what other people have been pretending to do for us. That is why when you look in the history, because history cannot lie. I mean, history is always the compass that every nation, every people who want to move forward must use in order to understand where they can put where they can step and where they cannot step, what they can do and what they cannot do. History is a great teacher for those who are looking in the future. They must always reflect in their past to understand the way they must go and what they must do and what they must not do. So when we look in the past 60 years, since the time that we consider to be the post-colonial period or the independence period in Africa, we have been praying. When you go around Africa, you see that in most countries, you see a lot of churches, you see a lot of mosques, you see that we are the people who have given ourselves into prayer. We have given ourselves into religion. We have given ourselves to God to change Africa. This is the first, I can say the first solution that we have adopted was to pray for Africa to change. That is why I have myself actually seen a lot of kind of convention or prayer or seminars religiously being organized for Africa to develop, for poverty to end in Africa, for hunger to end in Africa, for Africa to begin a journey of progress towards its development. I've seen a lot of things like this. So what we need to ask ourselves as African people is, we have been trying this solution for more than 60 years. In other words, we have been praying to develop Africa for more than 60 years. We need to look at ourselves today and to ask question of what we have been able to gain in terms of our prayers towards African development. Have we been able to achieve development through prayers? The answer to the question is simple. Because when you look at Africa, you have the answer for yourself. And we have been praying. So there might be few possibilities here. It's either the God to whom we are praying is wrong, or he doesn't answer prayers. Secondly, there might be another possibility, which is the prayers that we have been praying are wrong prayers. And the third thing is that the fact that we are praying actually is not the right thing that we are supposed to do in order to develop Africa. These are the three scenarios that can be investigated to find out why we have been praying for more than 60 years for African development, but up until now, we have not seen that development. Africa is still under subjection of poverty, of malnutrition, of unemployment, and all conditions that you name them by yourself. So we have been praying, and one thing that we don't realize is that many people pray to the God of Israel to protect and to develop Africa. We go into the churches, we pray to the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, literally God of Israel, for African development and progress. At the same time, the country called Israel does not pray to its own God for its own development. It works, it builds infrastructures, it builds industries, it builds institutions for its own development. Can't we see that there is something totally wrong here with our solution to pray for African development? We are praying to the God of Israel. Israel itself does not pray to that God to develop itself. It builds nuclear weapons, atomic bombs, it cultivates the land, it produces what they need, for their to cover their needs and their wants. So this is a contradiction for us as African people. One thing that needs to be understood is, for example, when white people who are today called Israelites, when they settled in that country in 1948, it was a desert. So they had to work to transform it into a land which is one of the major producers of agricultural produce, which is Israel today. So this was not done by prayer. This was not done by hope or by faith. This was done by work and science. So this is where we are getting it wrong. We want to develop Africa by prayer. You just have to look at the national anthem of, for example, France compared to the national anthem of South Africa or Zimbabwe to see the major difference. When you listen to the national anthem of France, it's all about war, about fight, about war, about military, about conquering other people. It's about right people against barbarian people. That is what the national anthem, the Marseille, French national anthem, that is what actually it emphasizes. It's all about conquering other people. It's all about war. It's all about, domination. It's actually about good people who are the French people against barbarians who are other people. Now, check into the South African national anthem. Check into Zimbabwe national anthem. Nkosi Sikelele South Africa. It means God bless South Africa. All about praying. All about asking God to do. So let's get back to the question again. How long does it gonna take us for us to change our situation as African people? It will take the time that we decide to begin doing for ourselves things that we wanted other people to do for us. In other words, it will take the moment that we decide to do for ourselves things that we have been praying for, things that we wanted God to do for us. When we begin to do those things for ourselves, Africa will be a different situation. In few years, Africa will be completely transformed. In few years, Africa will be the hope of the nations, the hope of the world in a short period. Why we are still suffering today? Because we are praying too much. We are praying for things that we are meant to do for ourselves. When you look at Africa, there's no need to pray for hunger. Because can you imagine, we have 60% of the arable land in the world. And we are still praying for God to end hunger in Africa. And God himself, wherever he is or she is, and I don't have a problem whether it's he or she, he actually look at us and say, these people are really full. They are really fools, because I gave them 60% of the arable land in the world, but they are still praying for me to end hunger. If we have hunger as a situation or as a challenge, what we need to do is to utilize our land in order to produce what we want to feed ourselves. We don't have to, I don't know, to pray for I don't know what to do. Should we pray for? We don't have to pray for wealth or for money, because we have the resources, we have the wealth. The money is paper. The true wealth is taken from the resources, from the transformation, or from the work that we do on the resources that we have under our feet. What do we do today as African people with all the resources that we have? All the diamonds, all the gold, all the platinum, all the things that we have in Africa. What do we do about those things? And we are still praying for money. Going to church, pray for money. What is the money? Paper, right? So this is what it takes, you know. Now, apart from prayer as well, from the very same time of independence, we have been praying to develop Africa, and we haven't been able to see the result of our prayer. We haven't been able to see God coming to develop our country. As I said, Israel took stand to develop that desert country which it settled for. They developed it. They built the weapons. They cultivated the land. They used science to produce food where there was no possibility to produce food. This is the same thing that Muammar Gaddafi did as well. He did not pray to Jesus. He did not pray to God. He did not pray to Muhammad or Allah to develop Libya, but he drilled in the desert to bring water, in the desert, because by using science, he discovered that there was water under the land, right? In the land. He brought that water on the surface, and then he was able to produce or to develop what we call agriculture in the desert. And Libya was one of the sustainable economy in Africa, as you know it already. So only work can develop Africa. And the people who are supposed to do that work is ourselves. If it's not about prayer, it's about expecting for European people to do for us. It's expecting Chinese people to do for us. And today we are looking into Russia to do for us things that we are supposed to do for ourselves. And guess what? What Russian people will do is only to pretend as they do is doing something for us. But in reality, they will be doing something for themselves, because it has always been the case. The meaningful solution, the most important solution that we need as African people cannot come from other people. It must come from ourselves. In other words, we are supposed to be in the forefront of whatever battle that need to be fought for Africa, whatever solution that need to be found for Africa. We need to be in the forefront of finding that solution. We need to be in the forefront of fighting that battle to give Africa what it deserves. No European will be the solution bringer of the predicament of African people. In reality, our situation today is actually a favorable situation to Europe, to China, and to other people. Please remember that the world today is at war. Every group of people in the world is fighting for one thing: the control and the domination of the world. Every group of people. The war that you see today between Russia and the West, or China and the West, is all about the world's control and domination. That is why in Russia they talk about a new world order. They want to reverse the old world order through which America and its allies were the dominators of the world, were the ones who had to dictate the direction through which the world must go. So this has to be reversed now. So every group of people, whether you talk about Indians, Arabs, Chinese, Russians, everyone want to control the whole world and to dictate in which direction the world must go. So the question that we need to understand, we need to ask ourselves as African people is, what is our goal? What is our vision of the world? And in case you don't remember, for anybody to be in that position of control and domination of the world, he must go through Africa, because Africa possesses the key to the world domination and power and control. The key is the resources that we have in Africa, right? So we cannot actually expect the Chinese people who want to control and to dominate the world will bring us the solution that we want, which is to make Africa the global power base. They will never gonna do that. They will only pretend to help us, but at the end they will be helping themselves, and they will be helping themselves. And what we will realize is that we'll find ourselves again at our knees, in trash, as we have been experienced with European people. So what will take for Africa to change, or how long it will take for Africa to change its situation? It can take any moment that we decide to begin doing for ourselves what other people have been pretending to do for us. Dr. John Henry Clarke said that there was nothing that Europeans have brought to this world to make us good or to make us a favor. Everything that they have brought in the world was to establish their domination over other people, and that's reality. And what we want to do also today is to get rid of that domination over us. And therefore, we cannot expect the very same people who want to remain in the position of domination over us to be the ones who will help us to get rid of that domination. It doesn't work like that. It is a contradiction, and it is not a proper solution. So we need to be the people who love the work. And the work that has to be done must be done by ourselves as African people. Whatever job needs to be done to free Africa and to emancipate Africa must be done by African people. So now the question is, you have been wishing to see Africa progressing. You have been hoping to see Africa developing. What are you doing? What kind of work, what kind of job you are doing to make sure that Africa becomes that hope that you have, to make sure that Africa actually becomes the vision or the goal, or actually the picture that you have in your mind about itself? What are you doing? Are you a reactionary African person, or you are actually a progressive African person? Because a reactionary African person or freedom fighter or whatever is that one who comes up to fight or to struggle only when something bad happens to him. And when things go back to normal, he forgets about the condition of Africa, because things are good for him or for her, because he's got a job, because he's got his car, his house. Therefore, there's no need to fight for African freedom and emancipation. But African progressive revolutionary are those who are working, on daily basis to bring about the transformation that we want to see in Africa, which is to make Africa as the global power base. So what kind of African are you? What kind of Pan-African are you? What kind of revolutionary are you? And what kind of job do you do every day to make sure that Africa becomes what we all want to see? This is the important question, because Africa will change only when we, all of us as African people, begin to do for ourselves the job that we wanted God to do for us. Because God does not develop a country. That's the reason why He put people here, is for you to develop your own country. It's for you to develop your own land. It's for you to transform your own situation. That is the reason why He gave us the brain. That's the reason why He gave us, the mind, the spirit, the soul, the eyes. All the tools that we have are capable to change our situation. Chinese people did it. Other people did it. And we are capable to do it, because we are the first actually who did it. Before there was any other civilization or any other human organized society, we did it. We came out of our own dark age. We learned the science. We learned the technology. We learned the astronomy, astrology. We learned all these laws that were necessary to help us build the first organized society in the world. So what job are you doing? What activity are you doing? Are you even part of any organization that is working for the African liberation and emancipation, or you are just a typical African who hope that one day things will be better? What job do you do? In case you don't have any activity that you do now, you can begin today. We all started at some point. We were not born talking about African liberation and emancipation. No, we had to decide at some point to begin doing something, because when we look at ourselves, we are a species in danger, facing our own extinction in this phase where we are today, which is called the sixth extinction, major extinction, that have happened since the beginning of the universe or whatever. So what are you doing as well? You can start today. And if you want to start, you don't know where to start, find an organization that is working for the cause of African liberation and emancipation. Join an organization, be part of an organization, and let's work together. And if you want one, I can give you, I've got many of them. I can invite you to join us in the African Continental Unity Party, because the only way we can work effectively, as I said, it's only the work that will help to free Africa or to change our situation. And that work must be done and can only be done effectively if it is being done through organization. It's not about you waking up in the morning today trying to do something and tomorrow you go home and you forget about it. That is not how Africa will be transformed. Your enemies, my enemies, are working tirelessly every single day. They have agencies, they have groups of think tank working and imagining what they can do, what kind of idea, what kind of policy, what kind of strategy they can put in place in order to keep their dominion or their domination over other people. So the question is, what do you do? We need to be organized. So you need to join an organization. You need to bring your contribution to the struggle for African liberation and emancipation. You need to bring your contribution, whether it is skills, expertise, time, connection, money, anything, that you have that can help to progress this agenda that we have of African liberation and emancipation. You can support the African Continental Unity Party. It needs your support. It's not going to work for, with ourselves. It's only when all of us come together and work together, we will be able to change the status quo of Africa and to transform our situation. It can take us 1 year, it can take us 2 years, it can take us 5 years, it can take us 50 or 100 years, or it may take us forever, because it only comes down to that one moment, that one day, that we begin to do for us what we want God to do for us, what we want European to do for us, what we want Chinese to do for us, because it's never going to happen. If it was meant to happen, if God is the one who can change the situation of Africa, then it would have happened 10 years after the independence. It would have happened actually during the slavery, but did not happen until people began to fight to end slavery, until people began to fight to end colonialism. That's when colonialism ended, not by prayer, not by faith, only by work and commitment. And whatever we are facing today as situation, it will change again only when we begin to work. Must remember, I don't know from which country you are, you must always remember that there are people who died. There are people who died for your country to become free. There are people who died for your country to get what is called independence. There are people who died for slavery to end. There are people who died and who fought. So the question that you need to ask yourself, where was prayer? I don't deny, the place of the divine in our existence. We have things that we are supposed to do on our own as human beings. And there are things that the divine must do, on his own capacity or her own capacity, so that the whole can become a finished product that we need, which is the African global power base. In closing, I want to remind you of this word by Frantz Fanon, very wonderful word that he said: every generation has a purpose to discover its mission and to fulfill it or to betray it. Every generation has an obligation or a purpose, which is to discover its own mission and to fulfill it or to betray it. We are a generation today. What is our mission? Are we fulfilling it or are we betraying it? Peace and power, peace and blessing, peace and decolonization to all African people from wherever you are. It was a pleasure to be with you again on this weekly conversation in terms of our struggle for liberation and emancipation championed by the African Continental Unity Party. If you have 2 shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have 2 trousers, please sell one and buy a sword, because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on streets. This revolution is not even on Facebook. This revolution is in the mind, because if our mind is not under our control, our bodies will be the tools that our oppressors will be using to enslave us. Please like the video and share it. Is a way you can also support what we do. Peace and blessing. We see you next time. Thank you very much.